As more evidence that 13 is an unlucky number, Alexander Hamilton was involved in 12 other duels before his fateful last attempt.
Daddy wasn't fighting a powwow. Daddy wasn't fighting a powwow. I love my little cat. I'm very fond of that. I'd rather have a big bow, 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 bow. Daddy
Hello,
wasn't
and welcome to the
fighting
Mochiverse.
a
I'm Linette.
powwow.
And I'm Skip,
Hello, Skip. How are you today?
doing just peachy.
Peachy. I thought you were going to say pissa.
Oh, I normally if I'd say if you're from Wicked Pissa, if
Yeah,
you're
we could
from
pissa.
Wicked Pissa, and everybody says
Oh,
what?
well, they should know by now if they have the internet.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
everybody talks about is how people in
yeah.
Boston say pissa. Although maybe that's just my news feed because
Could
I'm
be.
from Massachusetts.
Yeah,
But I don't know. Everybody tells me to say pissa whenever I say where I'm from. So,
yeah.
but anyway, hi folks. Welcome back. Today we're gonna delve a little bit into history. We're gonna do a history story today, and you've got a story for us today, don't you, Dad?
Yes, I do. It's about Aaron Burr, yeah,
Okay.
Burr and Hamilton,
Oh,
the
nice.
famous duel. I mean, I haven't seen Hamilton the musical, so I don't know.
Yeah, I was
Uh,
just gonna ask you. I'm the right person to have seen Hamilton the musical, but I haven't yet.
oh,
And I don't know why that is. I mean, I don't go personally to the theater, so I think at first I was waiting, to watch it on some sort of electronic thing. But
mhm,
then I know it's mostly rap, and rap isn't my jam. But I still know that I'll love it. I like Lin-Manuel Miranda. I've
mhm.
followed his career a little bit. He's a really cool dude.
Yep.
But I just haven't. And I'm only getting into American history recently. I was
Mhm.
never big, I was always a big history person, but American history was kind of like a blank for me. I was always interested in other countries' history.
Yeah, American history and history in general is generally a guy thing. Guys seem to be interested in it more
Well, especially
than
war
females.
history too.
Yeah.
But yeah, American history in particular, it seemed like a very, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the school, when in my generation, they focused a lot on certain things in American history. And so maybe those things that they focused on just weren't appealing
Mhm.
for me. But there
Right.
is a lot of rich history in such a short time in this country. It's just like it took me a really long time to be interested in any of it. But I went little by little, like I learned about Prohibition, and I think it was like the Civil War that kind of stuck me because I was just like, okay, you're just in school and they're like, the Civil War happened, and then Abraham
Yeah.
Lincoln,
Yeah.
and then it was over. Everything was great. Like, okay, can we?
Yeah. And I think probably in terms of a history, although there's been movies about the world wars, but I would speculate that it was more about the Civil War than anything else. And I'm speculating that. I don't know. I don't have any
Well,
hard
yes,
evidence to say otherwise.
especially years ago, like, as soon as PBS took hold,
Mhm.
that was when I started. I mean, after high school, I started learning.
Yeah,
But yeah, PBS took hold with all those who's the guy who did all the PBS documentaries? Oh,
yeah,
Ken Burns.
yeah.
He did the Civil
He did
War,
Civil War. Yes, there was that
and it
was
was it
it.
was huge. It's like 67,000 hours long and very good.
Yeah, and that sort of re-kicked off. I guess
Yeah,
the
sure, it's a
interest
word now.
in it. Coming from the North, in particular, the Civil War wasn't one thing. Ours was more the Revolutionary War.
That's true.
Particularly in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, stuff like that. That
That's
was
true.
that was
Yeah.
more our interest.
And the
Uh,
witch trials. That's basically
which
those are the
trials were
two
that?
things. Yeah, my school, it was like all about the witch. Oh, I get you. I get you. Sorry, folks. I'm a little slow on the uptake. I had Zaxby's for lunch and I'm drowsy.
Okay.
All
So
right.
anyway,
So, yeah, tell me about
meanwhile, back at the
Hamilton.
ranch,
Yeah.
uh,
That's like that song. What was
wait
that
a minute,
song?
we
Oh,
just went into
meanwhile,
another.
meanwhile back in the States.
Yeah,
Remember that
they were
song?
back in the States. Here we go. Boom. Okay.
Do 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 do
Yep.
do 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 do. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So anyway, there's been countless rivalries across the course of history.
Sure.
The most famous, I think, easily is the Hamilton-Burr rivalry. It
Mhm.
was pretty heated. It actually resulted in a duel, and duels were pretty common, back
Right.
in the
In
early
the
1800s, late
in the
1700s,
forever.
early 1800s.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a combination of a bit of rivalry, or someone offended somebody else for whatever reason, tried to hit on their girlfriend or insulted their courage,
Their family honor.
family honor, whatever it could be. So,
Yeah.
but it started for them guys, for them's guys. Uh,
Them's those the guys.
yeah, it started like it had its root in a Senate race in 1791. Burr had defeated Philip Schuyler, who was Hamilton's father-in-law,
Okay.
as a Federalist. Schuyler would have supported Washington and Hamilton's policies, but while Burr, a Democratic Republican,
Yeah,
Democrat Republican, yeah,
yeah,
is
the
that true?
terms were different back then than what we would
Okay,
call them
yeah,
now. Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of,
It was before
I
the
don't want to say
donkey and the elephant.
oxymoron, but it feels like it. Um,
Yeah,
South side,
it was before all that stuff.
yeah, South side opposed those policies. The relationship became more fractured during the election 1800. In that election, the electoral college got involved. It was in an impasse because there was a tie, president between Jefferson and running for president, and Burr, who was running for vice president on the
Mhm.
same ticket. Electoral rules at the time.
Was this still a was this still at the time when, oh, I guess it must have been later, because the first couple of elections for president, whoever didn't win, the next runner-up was vice president. So this was after
Usually,
that?
yeah. See,
Okay.
what would happen, the rules didn't distinguish between votes for president and vice president.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So the votes for the all four candidates were tallied. Once the votes were counted, Jefferson and Burr were tied. That meant something we have heard fairly recently, as far as when they had the election of Gore and Bush, where the House of Representatives can get involved, and they're
Okay.
going to decide who wants to be the next president. Hamilton wouldn't support or didn't support either candidate. He hated Burr more than Jefferson. And as a result of his maneuvers, Jefferson became president and Burr became vice president.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's amazing how these things can start. Just you take a position, and all of a sudden, whether there's an expediency for you taking that position.
Well, and from what I've learned, these guys were pretty hot-headed and passionate. I mean, at least in the 1700s they were. I don't know about the 1800s if they were still like that, but because like if you ever watched John Adams,
Yeah, yeah,
like they were always arguing, they were always fighting, and like the Senate and stuff was like much more animated
yeah.
than it is now. I guess, well, maybe, I don't know. I've seen some pretty animated things, but it was more like shouting matches than civilized conversation. And so these guys were like really like, all, they had, I can imagine they did have rivalries and were screaming at each other all the time.
Yeah, but you think about it, and I don't know what a factor it was, is that, you know, they didn't have sound systems. So
Right.
maybe that was the way they got across. You got a crowd, and to get yourself heard, you have to yell. And
Well,
when
yeah.
you yell, it doesn't always come out smooth, comes out angry. And it
Yeah.
might be angry anyways, but it's even worse when you yell. So this thing keeps going, and in 1804, Hamilton went after Burr again in a campaign against Burr. Burr was running for New York governor at the time.
Hmm.
Hamilton vigorously campaigned against him, and it helped somebody else, particularly this gentleman named Morgan Lewis, win the election, which led to further animosity.
Right.
And then, that sort of builds up. And a lot of times when you see rivalry between politicians, and then separately you see them shaking hands and like it's nothing, but as human beings, you got to imagine that that stuff carries over.
Oh,
And
yeah.
uh, I think in the days, in the way things are now, where everything is appearances, you don't see that, and because it's hidden. They don't want to show the fact. It's like someone, I don't really hate that person, but everything they say tells you they hate that person,
Oh yeah.
So at any rate, so they happen to get together again, but happen to be at the same dinner party. And it was angry words, and Hamilton refused to apologize. And Burr challenged him to a duel, like you were saying earlier, an affair of honor.
Right.
These duels, we see them at 30 paces, turn around and fire, Not every duel was completed. Sometimes they get to the point where it's about to happen and they just say, okay, I think I'll apologize. This isn't worth it.
Right.
Um,
Well, and I
and
think I don't know if you're going to talk about this in your notes, but Hamilton in particular,
mhm.
because he did have a bunch of duels before this one, but his thing that he did with supposedly the last two duels was that he just like didn't fire or didn't load. At least in the one right before this one, he purposely didn't fire or he purposely didn't load his weapon because he wasn't interested in killing anybody, but it's like, but what if the other guy does?
Yeah, well, that's the problem. It's just that if you think about it, it is complicated and it's complex rules, that you can actually get a resolution before you actually fire the weapons.
Right.
And Hamilton, he had several affairs of honor in his life, and he resolved most of them peacefully. So
Yeah.
he had a tendency to be that way, which probably Burr was not of the same mind. I think, like thought he was pretty hot headed, which is probably the case. But Burr just wouldn't had no part of it. It just turned out that they had this. They had the duel is like July 11th, 1804. They met at a dueling grounds. They had these grounds where they did these duel in Weehawken, New Jersey. Ironically, the same spot where Hamilton's son had died defending his father's honor in 1801.
Huh.
And there were conflicting reasons for that.
Right, right.
So as the sequence went, according to the second witness, Hamilton decided the duel was morally wrong and deliberately fired into the air.
That's what he did. Okay.
That's what he did. Yeah.
Yes.
And Burr's second, his assistant claimed that Hamilton fired him and missed. What happened next is certainly agreed upon is that Burr shot Hamilton in the stomach and the bullet lodged next to his spine. Hamilton transported to New York and died later on that afternoon.
Right, right.
Why Hamilton misfired continues to be topic of debate by historians. It's a tragic mistake. If you think about it, is that firing in the air, perhaps he shouldn't have done that.
Mm-hmm.
And because if you just think about it, you fire and the other person says, oh, he fired, he just missed. Okay.
Right. He's still gonna, yeah.
Yeah.
He's still got his shot.
Some people think it might have been intentional. There was a document that the Secretary of Treasury had written shortly before the duel, and it was published in the New York Evening Post. It stated that his strong opposition to duels and even relayed several reasons why he believed that he should not participate. Hamilton wrote in the interview that was conducted from this the publisher with Alexander. There was why he should not participate as long as it's conducted in the usual manner. And his stated his words specifically were, and it pleases God to give me the opportunity to reserve and throw away my first fire. I had thought even reserved for my second fire, which is interesting because that's what I just said earlier, is that firing in the air, maybe you shouldn't have fired at all.
Right.
Okay. Almost like you want to say, look, I'm firing in the air. Okay. I'm not shooting at you, but
He's making a statement. Yes.
right. I'm making a statement. Let's say for the sake of argument, there's a complex rule saying if you don't resolve verbally, you can resolve, I'll call it mechanically, for lack of a better way to say it. Listen, mechanically we have to fight. Let's say the rules are mechanically you have to fire if you don't apologize. So you
Right.
say, listen, I'm going to fire in the air, but I don't want to apologize. I just don't want to duel.
Right.
And then, and
Because,
I suggested you do the same,
yeah,
something like that.
something like that. He did
Yeah.
return fire, though, it looks like.
Oh, he shot him in the stomach,
No,
because,
Hamilton returned fire after being shot. He, after he was shot, it says Hamilton returned fire and hit a tree branch above and behind Burr's head. So afterwards, he's like, "All right, then, like, okay, I guess I'll shoot you now then if you shot
well,
me."
but the interesting thing about that is that he would have had a second pistol because
Yeah,
they were only one-shot pistols.
right. Interesting.
Well, I'm
Very
saying they were
interesting.
only one-shot pistols. I don't know for sure, but I assume back then it was one shot.
Right. Well, let's see.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. I was just reading about the illegality of duels because duels are illegal. They were back then too, they were illegal almost everywhere. And they
Mhm.
were illegal in New York and New Jersey, but they went to Weehawken on purpose because New Jersey is a little looser than New York was about
Yeah.
prosecuting.
Well, as I said earlier, it's basically there's a site for duels.
Yeah, it said there were
Yeah.
18 duels
Right.
between 1700 and 1845 at that site.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot that went on.
Yeah.
It's interesting because a lot of historians and even witnesses, believe that he never intended to fire at all, or
Hmm.
even had actually fired as a reaction to Burr's shot. Burr himself never brought this into account how Hamilton died. Which were you talking about, the second shot?
Yeah, there's differences of opinion or
Yeah,
something.
and Burr was like I said, I don't think he was, I think he was an angry man, I guess. But when Burr was told that Hamilton meant to throw a shot, he just mumbled and he said, it's contemptible if true. What's interesting is that after that, Burr was charged with murder in both New York and New Jersey. Charges ended up being dropped due to
Right.
some Senate influence. Okay.
Yes.
And then he managed to finish out his term as a vice president.
Another interesting thing, I don't know if you read this. Not sorry to interrupt you, but during these duels, this is very interesting. During these duels, they had all these like rules in place
Yep.
in order to achieve plausible deniability because of it being illegal.
Mhm.
So all the witnesses would turn their backs and not actually witness so that they could say they never saw any shots fired, they never saw any pistols. And the seconds in this particular duel had their backs to the participants. And so what I'm reading is that
How
it's
would they even
actually
know?
it's actually uncertain who fired first and who
Uh-huh.
fired which shot
Right.
because nobody was actually looking on purpose
Mhm.
so that nobody could testify that they actually witnessed. And that's because of legal ramifications later. These cases would be dropped a lot more easily if everybody said, I didn't see anything.
Well, the other part of that story would be with the accounts is that because Hamilton ended up dying,
Yeah,
Burr naturally was the bad guy, especially
right.
if there was some thoughts that he didn't even get shot at. Okay.
Right. And then if Hamilton, this is like Han Solo all over again. If Hamilton had shot first and he did shoot him near his head into a tree branch, Burr could have shot second and dude, that dude almost shot me. I
Yeah.
wasn't even going to shoot him. I'll shoot him in the stomach.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, could have happened that way.
Yeah, it
Oh
could
my
have,
goodness.
but if they're not looking, yeah, I can see
But
that.
that's a very interesting touch with the witnesses to be like, we
Yeah,
never saw
that's
guns. They would like so when the guns were transported, everybody would turn around. So nobody saw any guns. Nobody could say I saw a gun.
never saw a thing. I heard a sound. I mean, so
Yeah, there was something. I mean, it could have been a car backfiring, right?
yeah, that's yeah. Okay.
Depends. I mean, it's New Jersey.
Yeah, yeah. Burr's life after that. was
Oh yeah.
very good. He he got entrapped in a treason scandal, and
Yes.
3 years later, after the Hamilton's death, that was 3 years later. Then his second wife left him in a bitter divorce, and and she had hired one of Hamilton's sons as her attorney. How about that?
Nice. Nice.
Nice, good touch. Uh, his daughter, uh,
His, she was a hot
Teresa
ticket.
Burr, had vanished while en route to meet him in New York
Yes. She
after a judge
disappeared for
acquitted
a
him of
while.
treason. Burr retreated to Europe in 1812, returned to New York, where he practiced law, though he never held public office again. He died in 1836. Again, that was the most famous duel because that's the one we always hear references to.
Right.
Um,
Oh yeah. I mean, it's all over the place, especially after Hamilton came out, but
well, yeah, that brings it back up
it
again.
brings it back up. Yeah. But so we talked about this months and months ago when we first talked about doing this episode.
Mhm.
Uh, the commercial for Got Milk.
Mhm.
So I don't know if any of you guys remember. So this was in 1993. There was this really good, there was this campaign. It was all the commercials on TV pretty much. It was Got Milk, and it was the milk people. It was Big Milk,
Mhm.
and they were trying to advertise for drinking milk. And they had really funny commercials. Like, and usually they involved like somebody trying to do something, but they just ate something, so, and they don't have their milk, so they can't be understood or whatever. And my favorite one is this guy. He's like a historian. He may or may not work in a museum, or at least he owns his own personal museum. This guy is sitting in a room that is chock full of Aaron Burr specific memorabilia. And the camera like zooms around to see it. And what this guy's doing is he's like on his lunch break and he's listening to the radio, and there's a radio contest. It's a trivia contest, and the question is, who shot Hamilton? And then his phone rings because he's the one who's winning the contest. He's the one who's the caller or whatever.
Yeah.
So he's stuck. He's on the phone. He's on the air. They're like, "Oh, you're the fifth caller or whatever. Can you tell us who shot Hamilton?" And he had just taken a huge bite out of a peanut butter sandwich, and his glass of milk is empty. So he can't take a swig of milk in order to say what he clearly knows, because as it pans around the room, it has like Hamilton this, Aaron Burr this, Aaron Burr this, and it says the actual bullet, and it's in a case, like in a glass case, very dramatic. The guy's freaking out. He's sweating. He's like making these like sad noises, like, and then he starts going like, he's like yelling it into the phone, and the radio guy's like, "Sorry, we couldn't understand you. Let's go to the next caller." And then it's like the commercial ends, and then it says "Got Milk," and then you see this really defeated poor guy. He's all sad. He goes,
Oh, I
"Aaron
don't remember that
Burr,
one. Yeah, that's
Aaron
weird.
Burr." Yeah, you can see it on YouTube. It's very funny.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
the best commercial for that, and it was directed by Michael Bay.
Wow.
And if you go Google it after we're done here, go on YouTube and look it up after we're done here. It's pretty clear it was Michael Bay. It's like all these like jump shots,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
very dramatic music. It's actually a very well done. And this was, of course, 1993, before Michael Bay was like huge
Right, right.
as a whatever he's doing, you know. But I thought that was one of the coolest bits of,
Cool, cool.
yeah, Michael Bay did a
Wow.
Got Milk commercial, and it's like a really good one. It's like the best one. So highly recommended. But yeah, of course, Hamilton the musical, which I still haven't seen. I'm a very bad nerd. I haven't seen it yet. But like in my defense, I've only watched 1776 like a handful of times either.
Oh, is
So
that all?
again, musicals about American history are not
Yeah,
exactly my bag.
yeah. I
But
can get it. I understand that.
I like musicals though.
Yeah. But
Just
American history, I mean, it's
Well, I like
yeah,
Man of La Mancha, and I liked
yeah,
Fiddler on the Roof and The
yeah.
Music Man, and there's a lot of them I like, but
I saw Fiddler on the Roof in Theater in the Round
Oh,
in Beverly.
oh yeah, I was gonna say
And
that theater in Beverly.
yeah, and then I also went to see Anne Murray there. We were the youngest people there. Um, the and then
He's
what was the
talking
other
like
thing?
he's like 30 years old. Anne Murray
I
is like
know.
your generation's music.
Well, let's understand something. I was probably in my 30s then,
Yeah,
maybe 40s when we went there, and we were kind of the youngest. And then saw West Side Story there.
nice.
And theater in around was kind of cool because the stage was right in the center, and you know
Yeah.
the seats were all around it. It was a really nice theater, and that was kind of I saw a few things there, but that was the plays were the Fiddler on the Roof, in West Side Story. I think we got that through the company. It was a company outing, and Anne Murray, we went to see it ourselves, but
Yeah, see,
um,
local theater, I mean, once I went to that show, I kind of want to do more of that. Like the Peabody Theater that's near us is
mhm,
it's it's a nice little theater.
yeah,
It's probably about the size as that North Shore Music Theater, the little
yeah.
theater in the round. It doesn't have like a huge amount of seats, but good enough,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
yeah, for
good
sure.
enough for good enough for the people who come, I mean it was
And yeah,
I
it
mean
was
it was Dave
intimate
Dave
enough.
Foley was there.
Really.
I'm so excited.
Okay.
I was so excited to see Dave Foley, even though
Yeah,
like he didn't see me. I
yeah.
don't know why I was so excited. I don't know. I'm a weirdo. But yeah,
Oh,
so wow, Hamilton. That's
yep.
yeah, I had heard I listened to a couple of podcasts about Aaron Burr. It wasn't about the duel. It was about I listened to one about the treason charges. And
Mhm.
then I listened to one episode. I don't remember if it was Stuff You Missed in History class or one of the other shows like that that talked about the daughter. And
Yeah,
apparently she was like this hot ticket. He had
right.
raised her, he had purposely raised her to be educated because he felt that women should have an education, which is pretty progressive in the early, 1800s or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, but she was like one of these, who was that other? There was like a president's daughter who was also like what everybody else would have termed a pain in the ass, who was just really cool and just getting
Yeah,
in trouble all the time and smoking cigarettes in public and wearing pants instead of skirts. And she was like one of those kind of ladies. And she
yeah.
disappeared for a while. And I don't remember what happened to her, but we should probably, and we could research that at some point, do an episode. But yeah, that was a very that was a compelling story. I just remember being really interested in it. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, Aaron Burr, who knows what, I mean, I tried to read up a little bit about like what he was like,
Yeah.
and uh, he like it's like that joke from Chicago. What's your sister? they they say, "What's your sister like?" And I say, "Men." If you ask him what's Aaron Burr like, and he would say women, because apparently he had like 1,500 illegitimate children.
Right.
I was just reading about all of those. But he ended up like giving them a lot of money later, and supposedly that was part of Hamilton's problem with him is how much of a womanizer he was.
Yeah.
Because Hamilton was like publicly saying that he was immoral, and that's why he didn't like him, and that's why he supported Jefferson. Is it Jefferson that he was supporting? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, it sometimes happens that way. There is some previous slight or something like that. They could have been passionate about something, and he disagreed with them, and some people don't like to be disagreed with, so hey.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, certainly like even in the 1800s, these politicians were no strangers to knowing womanizers.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
they knew Ben Franklin.
Yeah.
Ben Franklin had like 10,000 children, so
Yeah. He was a stud. So,
something like that.
which is weird looking at him. But anyway,
Yeah,
yeah. So that's our
yeah.
Hamilton Burr story. That's not that
That's
bad,
not that bad. Nice little quick one. I don't mind that. Every once in a while, we can have a nice little quick one. Hopefully you guys found that interesting. If you guys have any Aaron Burr tidbits you'd like to present, I'm gonna put a link to the video
Hmm.
of that commercial in our
Okay.
show notes because I think everybody needs to see that. I was talking about it to my coworker and they were like, "Oh, I vaguely remember that commercial." And I said, "It was Michael Bay. It was Michael Bay."
Yeah,
You know, when you learn a piece of trivia that like blows your mind, you want it to blow everybody else's mind too.
yeah,
So yeah, so check that out. And if you can, please go on Apple Podcast and rate us. Try to subscribe. Subscribe on YouTube. We haven't had any really a lot of views on there. I know it's not video, it's just audio, but because nobody wants to see me on video. My dad's very handsome, but I'm not as
hey,
handsome.
be
So
careful.
yeah, but stay away from him though.
Yeah, that's right.
Uh, but yeah, so check us out on YouTube. Check us out wherever you're currently checking us out. Send us an email, mochiverse@gmail.com. That's MOCCIAVERSE at gmail.com. Please do that. We're very lonely over here. I check my email every day and I'm very sad that nobody's emailing us and sending us pictures of their dogs and cats or telling us something they know that we didn't talk about,
That's right. Yeah, that's.
something
I
we
mean, we.
missed.
I think as we go through these stories, it really. I think you've mentioned it before.
Yeah,
Is that really these are basis of our based on our research
right.
and
Yeah, we're
our
not professional
conclusions, and
researchers. Yeah.
perhaps we can miss on some facts or
Oh,
figures,
sure.
and we're not experts, we're not historians. We
No,
just
just
a couple of
armchair historians.
yeah, just a couple of folks that want to chat away.
Basically, this is the just a this is just a audio record of what we were doing anyway for years. And that was just talking about whatever we wanted to talk about for like 4 hours
Yep,
on the phone. And
yep,
and usually getting into some interesting stuff that one of us didn't know yet
right,
and going, "Oh, wow, I never heard about that before. Tell me more about
yep.
that." And so whatever. If you guys don't want to listen, it's for us anyway. Sorry, that came
Yeah,
off
because
aggressive.
generally speaking, the differences I think are is that our conversations will jump from thing to thing. We'll be like we'll be talking about something, and all of a sudden, either one of us will say, while we said that, I just flashed on something here that I remember, and then we just boom, we go on to something else.
Yeah.
And what we try to do, and to keep it this way, and we make a big effort to do that, is to not to get into contentious subjects.
No,
What I call
yeah.
contentious subjects.
Yeah, that's for our
Um,
private phone calls. We can talk about
that's right,
politics and religion
exactly.
in our private
That's
call.
right. Yeah, you know,
Nobody needs that. Nobody needs to
no,
be angry at us for stuff that we just feel, which is
no. But
stupid anyways, but
yeah.
like,
But I, generally speaking, I don't. I have opinions one way or another, but not. They're not so strong and unflappable that I can't be convinced otherwise, and that's part of
yeah.
where our conversations go.
Yeah, which is cool because it is nice to be able to talk to somebody who has a slightly differing opinion,
Mhm.
but who isn't. First of all, even if your opinion doesn't change as a result of a conversation, it is very nice to be able to talk to somebody who has a differing opinion but is still willing to listen to you and still like respect you at the end of the conversation.
Right, right.
And it's just like, well, okay, now I know why you feel that way.
Yeah,
That makes sense. I
yeah,
still feel the way I want to feel, which is the way you should feel. But
right.
it's kind of cool to hear somebody else's perspective and get a little insight into their humanity.
Yep.
Uh, and it's better because most of the time, when we as humans have a different opinion than other humans, we just think of them as morons because they have those opinions.
Yep.
But if you actually, I guess what I'm trying to say is if you actually have a real conversation about something that's more than just the Monty Python argument sketch,
Yep.
then you can actually learn a little bit about someone. And once you learn about someone, you kind of go, okay, we could still differ, but now you're a human to
Yeah,
me.
I kind of feel when you have I don't mind a good discussion.
Yeah.
What I mind is that when and we don't get into this because that's not the way our personalities are, but what I really mind is the ones that strongly tell you or make you feel like you're absolutely wrong and your opinion doesn't is
Or
not
that
important.
you're
And
blind or naive or
yeah, so
just
I
don't
just,
know.
I turn those off. I'd much rather have the conversation, because I kind of understand that somewhere along the line, and this is sort of a bugaboo, is what, they give politicians flip flopping. And the way I look at it is that as you get more information, your position changes and you start looking at it logically. Hey, wait a minute.
And it should.
This is different than what I thought. To have the ability to change your mind is really important, because to be so rigid in what you do produces what I believe is unintended consequences.
Sure.
So having more information helps move that along. Anyway, that's
Yeah.
kind of philosophical thing. Sorry.
It is. That's wonderful. And that's that on that. So
Yeah.
now that we've done that,
Yep.
yeah, some uncontroversial dad jokes.
Yes. Listen, listen. This is so true. Singing in the shower is fun until you get soap in your mouth. Then it's a soap opera.
Okay.
Why do a ticket in the Eiffel Tower? Oh, why? What do a ticket in the
Why?
Eiffel Tower have in common?
Oh, what?
They're both parasites.
Ah.
Uh, why? What do you call? I'm doing this why thing. What do
Yeah,
you
why?
call a fish wearing a bow tie?
What?
Sophisticated.
Oh, sophisticated. That's like from last week with the bananas.
Yes, it is. Yes, right. And this one's a pretty common one. You've probably seen this. How do you follow Will Smith in the snow?
Oh,
You follow the Fresh Prince.
Fresh Prince. Oh God.
Yeah. If April showers bring Mayflowers, what do Mayflowers bring?
I know this one. The Pilgrims.
There you go. There you go. I thought the dryer was shrinking my clothes. Turns out it was the refrigerator all along.
Oh God.
How does dry skin affect you at work?
How?
You don't have any elbow grease to put into it.
Ew. That's gross.
Yeah, I know.
The end.
The end. And if when I tell these jokes to my significant other, I get the eye roll.
Yeah, of course.
Just like you
Every,
kids used to do when I used to tell them.
yeah, that's what we're supposed to do.
That's right. If it doesn't come with an eye roll, it's not a good one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, folks. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
All
Bye.
right. Have fun. Be good.
Say bye.
Bye.
Daddy wasn't finding a pow wow. Daddy wasn't finding a pow wow. I've got a little cat. I'm very fond of that. I'd rather have a big bow wow.
Let's see if I can do this. Oh my God, my eyes. Oh, okay. Now the headphones are falling off. Jesus Christ. Technical difficulties. Woo, woo.